All right, guys, we're back again with another tutorial here. So this is the this would be the fourth tutorial, part of our little mini series where we try to get you guys past winter or at least past autumn, so you guys can start winter out with the proper amount of resources. So before we left off, we were talking about how amazing meatballs were. So we're going to go ahead and begin our tutorial with a little bit of a snack. As I mentioned before, try to keep a few things in your inventory, but do not overwhelm your inventory. So let's go ahead and we'll empty out our inventory from the things that we don't need. Purple gems do not come in handy right away. Silk will come in handy. However, right now we do not need it. Now you might look at your pickaxe and go, this one has 1% or 3% or 1 use left in it. Why are we not using the pickaxe until it's finished? And we're going to go ahead and show you why. So a pickaxe is extremely useful until you get yourself a golden pickaxe. But do not throw away your old ones, and we'll show you why right now. On the ground, you're going to notice that there's already a thermal stone made, but let's go ahead and make ourselves another one. In our backpack, we did previously make ourselves a thermal stone, but I want to show you guys once again, for the people that I might not have mentioned about a low percentage pickaxe, to make another one just in case. And I'm going to explain why having multiple pickaxes in your base is a good idea. So scrolling down on your survival tab, you're going to see thermal stone is made with 1 pickaxe, 10 rocks, and 3 flint. And as I mentioned before, this is why keeping your low pickaxes useful on the ground instead of using them to the last drop is a great idea. So let's go ahead and we're going to make one more, and this one we're going to keep inside the fridge. Now you might ask yourself, why are we keeping a thermal stone inside the fridge if it's going to be winter time? And it's because having a thermal stone in the fridge is always the best idea. That way you have an extra one when summertime rolls around. It's already cooled off. As soon as summer hits, you can take that out of the fridge, and it's basically having a cool thermal stone that'll get you walking around summertime as if there's nothing to worry about. But having an extra thermal stone next to the fire is also a great idea. So because it is going to wintertime, we're going to keep this one next to the fire. And eventually we'll have it next to our furnace, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. So starting out, get rid of any extra things that you don't need. Always keep a little bit of grass, a little bit of twigs, a little bit of flint, and a little bit of rocks on you. And get rid of anything else that you don't need. Trinkets are something that we can show later on. Keeping a few gears on you is only useful if you plan on using them on the go, which we're not going to, so we can get rid of those. The pan flute is a great thing to keep in your backpack as well too. And niter we don't need as of right now until summer starts either. So our backpack has 5 spots, but generally I like to keep gold in there, a little bit of rocks, a pan flute, and you can keep your extra torch on you at all times if need be, and get rid of, once again, if you have gold in your backpack, it's time to make the rest of our golden tools. So for chopping, luxury axe, and of course for digging, your your regal shovel, which will make sure that whenever you're picking up stuff, you're not wasting plenty of resources making new shovels. So as the night shows up, we're going to wander around, and it's a great time to start doing so. And you're going to want to start with step 2 of gathering resources, beginning with, instead of picking grass, so instead of gathering them and not picking up the tufts, you're now going to take your golden shovel that has 100 uses. And I would suggest using this instead of you can use a regular shovel if you absolutely have to, but I would suggest using the golden tool for digging this stuff up rather than wasting your flint. And you're going to go around, and it's now time to start collecting twigs and grass. And this is something that I would make sure that, for example, if you walk over and you have the show me mod enabled and you scroll over a grass tuft that says in 1.4 days, this will be coming back. So which that means is in 1.3 days, and you have 9 days left of autumn, this will return and regrow. So I do not suggest as of right now digging this tuft up, because in 1 day it's going to bring you back grass. So instead, pick the grass that is already fully grown. So for example, we're going to go and start picking these up. Now, if you want to avoid picking them up, and once again, I am using the Action Cube Reborn, and as soon as it's dug up, you're going to have to press spacebar. If you do not want to do this, pressing the F4 key will enable auto collect. Now, auto collect is a function where as soon as you dig an item up, your character will automatically pick up what is ever on the ground after digging up said item. So it's a useful thing to have, and it will keep you, from having to hold spacebar right after going through the process of digging them up. So once again, Action Q Reborn, hold shift down, right click. If you're not using Action Q Reborn, you can continue to automatically pick them up yourself. But for the sake of somewhat speeding up, gathering resources, it's always a great tool to have. So I'm not going to gather too many of these, but I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that it's always good to go through the process of gathering this. But I'm also going to promote gathering berry bushes. Now, berry bushes are a useful thing to have in your base at all times, because at any point in time during springtime, during autumn, and during summer, it's going to be a great source of filler. Now, obviously, in winter, you're not going to have any of these growing, but in winter, there's a much better resource to use as filler, and that is ice. So think of berries as your all-around food source, except for when it comes to winter. Start to rely on ice more because it's renewable. There's plenty of it, and you're not going to have to worry about it running out because you can get more and more and more as you travel around in wintertime. So we're going to go and drop a bunch of this stuff off, and then we're going to show you the biomes that we mentioned before. So remember to keep your shovel with you, but continue to drop off these resources back at your base. Having these resources right now is a good way of getting used to preparing your base for wintertime, for even summer, and so forth. So make sure that you prepare yourself a few meatballs. We already have a meatball prepared for us now. I would suggest that when you're going on long expeditions, make sure that you're making yourself one meatball. Once again, 3 fillers, 1 meat of any kind, and you can go through the process of making yourself a meatball to have on the go. The beautiful thing about the Show Me mod is you're able to see how long it takes for a meatball or anything that you're cooking inside the crock pot to finish. And it's very helpful to know, okay, I have 45 seconds around my base to do stuff before things finish cooking. So we're going to take that and we're going to continue to wander over to the Dragonfly Desert. In our map, which is a very rare occasion, we have the Oasis connected to the Dragonfly Desert. Now, this is a good thing, but also could be a bad thing, because in a map like what we have here, I like to call this kind of like a line map. Most of the maps that I prefer on Don't Starve Together are more of like a circle style, or sometimes you have where they kind of branch off from each other. So this is kind of an awkward map to stick with, but it really varies depending on the size of your map and a few other things as well too. So traveling over, I always try to remember that staying on the roads is your fastest way of traveling and Don't Starve Together. Wandering off, you're going to notice that your character is going to walk a little bit slower. Not a lot slower, but it's always best to stay on the roads if you can. I would also suggest, too, when you have some time, if you're not gathering wood, perhaps somebody else on the server can. Gathering a ton of wood is always a great thing to have. You're going to always need lots of wood, but be careful, because gathering too much wood can cause issues, and we'll go through that in a second. So after we do that, I'll kind of go over a few other things when it comes to gathering resources, on what to be cautious about. But gathering wood is the only thing in this game that will cause an item, or that will cause a creature to attack you. So what I mean by that is the more wood you gather, the more naughtiness you gain for kind of chopping wood. And I like to call it like the tree guard naughtiness. So when you chop a tree, you basically trigger the tree guards, or the gods of the trees to kind of look at you the wrong way. And the more trees you chop, the higher chance you have of a tree guard spawning. So ways to combat that, which I'll show you in a few minutes, is continuously planting pine cones back into the ground. So I'm not going to do it in the swamp, because there's quite a few things in the swamp that can attack you, whether it's mosquitoes, whether it's tentacles, whether it's worms, and always be careful in the swamps, because at any moment you can get attacked out of nowhere. So definitely not the best place to stop. So as we approach, you can see that we are now at the Oasis, and you can tell that it's the Oasis because you have the Oasis pool, which is currently not active, but we won't talk too much about that until it gets to summertime. At the Oasis, you will always have this boon. If you don't have this boon, or this dead body with items around it, you're probably might have a faulty world, or it's possible that there could be another reason behind it. Maybe a mod is causing it not to spawn in. But generally, when you have this, you have a fishing rod, you have a straw hat, and you also have a straw roll. And as I mentioned before, you can hear the hounds are about to show up. So we got our first hounds on day 13. Now, our friends are not near us. Our friends are out wandering, gathering resources, but we are prepared. We have our one spear, we have our helmet, and we have our extra log suit. So when a hound is attacking you, you have two options. You can wait. You can wait and try to kite the hounds, but when there's plenty of hounds that are around you and you have nowhere to go and you have nothing to do, you can always resort to tanking. I myself always love tanking. It's one of the things that I do a lot in Don't Starve Together, but a lot of people prefer that you don't do that so you can conserve resources and make sure that your character does not take a lot of damage. When it comes to hounds, if you don't want to attack them by yourself and you want people to help you, you can pretty much outrun hounds by running in circles as long as you don't fully stop. If you're playing a character known as Wolfgang, this will be the only character that will cause your character to stop running halfway through when he gets hungry. But the longer you wait at dusk, the closer you get to darkness. So that is why having our miner hat and our log suit is going to help us out a ton. So if there were one hound here, we could easily kite that hound without having to take any damage. And basically the way it works is hounds will try to chomp at you as soon as they get close, so you can let them chomp and run away and hope that you're going to avoid the hit. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to turn on my miner hat, and I'm going to equip my log suit, and I'm going to tank. This is something that you want to be kind of like your last resort. It's always good to get into the habit of kiting. And now that we have one hound, you can see how that is being done. So the single hound basically approaches you, and you can do where the hound is going to it's continuously barking here. But anyways, when it goes through the process of biting, you could basically just run away from it, and that'll trigger it to bite again, hit, bite again, hit, bite again, and then you can usually get a double hit in there as well too. And that's how you tackle one hound. Tackling multiple hounds is something that you might take a little bit of time to get used to, but the more you do it, the easier it'll be. And there you go. So now that is our first hound attack. And you might say to yourself, wow, that seems pretty easy if that's a hound attack. But as the days get longer and as the time gets more drawn out in your game, you're going to get more and more and more hounds. And the next time there's a hound attack, you're going to get double the amount of hounds that are going to be attacking. So the reason why having your armor and a log suit is so important early game is because you never know when the hound attack is going to happen. But generally, it's within like the first 14 to 15 days of the game, and you only usually get a handful of hounds. As you can see, we only got 3, and that's not very many to really worry about early game. So just make sure that you have your log suit or armor of sorts and a spear. So getting back to the Oasis, the fishing rod is for a future thing that we'll talk more about in the Oasis, which when the Oasis pond opens up, but it's a beautiful spot to get a free straw hat. So as I mentioned before with the miner hat required a straw hat. So if you don't want to use the resources, if you don't want to use the grass that we used to make the straw hat, you can always go to your Oasis and get a free one. A straw roll is not necessarily something that I promote using, but it is an easy way of sleeping if you absolutely need to gain a little bit of sanity at nighttime. And as a fishing rod is always good for getting fish if you absolutely need to get food. But I suggest leaving these items here except for the straw hat when it comes to summertime. So continuing on, we're going to go now over to the Dragonfly Desert, where we can show a few other things and how important some of those items can be. So walking along, you're going to see a few items. You're going to see a few things on the ground. You're going to see a cactus, which is going to be one of your best friends in the game. And you're going to see a tumbleweed, which is actually not coming from the Oasis, but coming from the Dragonfly Desert. Tumbleweeds are very, very useful. If in if in a server, when you notice that every resource around you is completely used up, there's nothing left to pick, you can always resort to tumbleweeds. But be careful, because tumbleweeds have a small percentage chance of spawning something bad inside of it. For example, spider. There can be multiple different things that can spawn inside of a tumbleweed that can cause harm to you. So you always want to make sure that you're kind of on your toes. And nothing that's major that's going to cause any damage, but just remember that tumbleweeds can sometimes have a surprise. You're going to also notice that going in each biome, you have two separate cactus. You have the tall cactus in the Oasis, and you have the oval-shaped cactus that are located in the Dragonfly Desert. Now, the difference between the two basically helps you notice the difference between your biome. For example, if you uncovered this side of the biome and they had the tall cactus, you know you're in the Oasis. If you have the oval, you'll know that you're in the Dragonfly Desert. It's an easy way of distinguishing between the two without having to decide, okay, is this where the Dragonfly is or is it not? Now, I keep talking about this Dragonfly. And what is the Dragonfly? The Dragonfly is a giant boss which you're going to want to try to avoid. As soon as you see on your map that there are the magma pools, you're going to want to make sure that you try to avoid walking near them unless you have armor or unless you have your pan flute on you. Because if the Dragonfly decides to attack you or come close to you, or if you get too close to it, you can trigger it and it will cause a lot of damage. So we're going to try to avoid it right now. And generally around the Dragonfly Desert, you're going to notice a set of bones with hounds around them. Those are called hound mounds. And generally, you will notice lots and lots of hounds around the Dragonfly Desert. So always try to avoid those if possible as well, too. So before leaving the desert, we're going to pick a few of these cactus. And these, as I mentioned before, are probably one of the best items in the game, aside from the stone fruit, but we won't get too much into that either right now. So picking a few cactus, as you notice, cause damage. So I would advise not picking any cactus unless you have armor on you. So taking a cactus, picking it, you still are going to lose 1 HP, and you're going to lose a few percentage off of your helmets or armor that you're carrying as well too. There is one item in this game that can prevent this from happening, but we will explain that in another video. So once again, anytime you're near a tumbleweed, pick that tumbleweed, gather everything inside of it, because you can sometimes get things that you can turn in for gold, which are known as trinkets. And I mentioned before there were a few trinkets at our base, and those trinkets you can turn into the Pig King, which is located all the way over here. The Pig King is another character that we'll go to get some gold. So keep all of your trinkets. If you ever look at something and it says, using the Show Me mod, and it says anything to do with like a toy or a knot or anything that just looks like it's not something normal, is generally a trinket. So usually in the Show Me mod, it will tell you this item can be a gold tribute +4, which means that trading this into the Pig King will get you 4 gold. So it's a really, really, really useful thing to keep on you, especially if you're running low on gold and you don't want to go around and start, picking the gold from if you don't have anything to mine with. So I won't go through and pick too many cactus, but at least grab yourself a little bit of a handful before leaving, and that way you can go back and I can continue to show you what we can do with this cactus. So as night falls, we notice that my hunger is low and my sanity is beginning to drop. And sanity is one of the most harsh things in Don't Starve Together, because as soon as your sanity goes down, you're going to notice that you're going to have a harder time avoiding danger. So with a little bit of wood and a little bit of grass in your inventory, you can make yourself an on-the-go campfire. So 2 wood and 3 grass. Feel free to, I would always suggest pre-making and always having an extra campfire on you at all times. So making a campfire, and then as soon as you have the leftover resources, make yourself another one. Having an extra campfire and having an extra torch on you at all times is always a great thing to do, and always continuing to leave yourself with a few pre-made items helps a ton. So we picked the cactus. Eating it without cooking it is going to only give us 12 hunger, and it'll -5 sanity and -3 HP. So if you eat it, it's going to hurt your HP, because obviously you're eating raw cactus, and generally any raw food in this game, except for usually berries and a few other items, are going to without cooking them is going to cause you to not have the full effect. So instead, we're going to cook the cactus, and when you're done cooking the full stack, you're going to have one of the best sanity items in the game. Now, the cooked cactus still gives you 12.5 hunger, but now gives you plus 15 sanity. And instead of taking HP, it's now letting you gain 1 HP. Cactus is not anything to use to fill your bellies, but it 100% is used to increase your sanity. So cactus is going to be something that you're going to always want to come back to get more and more and more of. The beauty about cactus is it's above ground. So there are a few sanity items which you can get in the basement known as mushroom caps. And the green mushroom cap, however, is a little bit harder to come by, but is another item that when cooked will give you sanity. But if you don't want to go down in the caves and you want to have what's above ground, living either near or close to, or where a portal is close, for example, you can see a portal over here, which we're going to show in a second. Living close to the desert is a great way of coming back and getting cactus at any time. And the other bonus is cactus counts towards veggies. So veggies are something that are a very important part of a very important recipe known as the pierogi. And a pierogi requires 1 veggie, and a cactus counts towards that. So always having plenty of cactus on you is a great way of making sure that you have parts of recipes and keeping your sanity up at all times. So we've explored the Oasis, we've explored the Dragonfly Desert, although we haven't really shown the Dragonfly. I want to get back to base because now we only have 7 days left before winter arrives. Is our base ready? Do we have a lot of resources? I believe we have enough, but we want to make sure that we're taking all the items that we can back to our base with us, just so we have things to keep us through the winter. Now, going into winter, you're going to want to make sure that you have, one of the most important things is obviously having wood. Wood will keep you nice and warm when you're wandering around and making sure that you can have a fire on the go, making sure that you have a place to get meat if you need to, and making sure that you have ways of continuously making more armor. So grass will not grow in winter, just like any other plant will not grow in winter. So you got to make sure that if you have a Wigford in your server, make sure that you have some gold, make sure that you have some rocks. If you don't have a Wigford in your server, make sure that you have some wood and you have some grass, because you're going to want to make sure that you have some armor for one boss that won't be a boss that you go to find, but instead a boss that'll find you. And that is known as the Deerclops. A Deerclops is probably the first boss that you're going to come across without expecting it, and it'll show up on day 30. As night falls on day 30, the Deerclops begins to kind of slowly breathe, and you can basically hear the sound of the Deerclops. So you're going to want to make sure that you're prepared for that, and we'll kind of go through that as time comes. So for the time being, we're going to take us all the berries that we walked by, make sure we gather anything else, and bring it back to our base so we have plenty of food for winter. So if you have biomes like we do, where you can clearly see we have a lot of berry bushes, we have a lot of grass, we have extra berry bushes over here. It's always good to bring them back with you. Now, another reason why you might not want to bring all of the berries with you in the entire world of Don't Starve is because during summer, when fires break out, if your Fling-O-Matic gets damaged, if your Fling-O-Matic doesn't have fuel, and your base burns down, you don't want to have a world without berries, because you can still survive. It's not a hard problem, but always having extra berries in the world of Don't Starve Together is an easy source, as I mentioned before, of making sure that you have filler for lots of recipes. So I'm not going to take all of the berry bushes, but I will take most of them, because sooner or later we will have the Fling-O-Matic that we need to keep us going. So as time goes on, we're going to continue to gather the rest of these. We're going to go back to our base, check up on it one more time, and then we're going to get ready for the fight in the next video, which, keep in mind, we only have 6 days left of autumn. So as you get closer to winter, the temperature will start to go down and down and down until the day before winter. Sometimes the second day before winter, you're going to start to notice your character beginning to get colder and colder and colder, and especially at nighttime, you're going to start to need your thermal stone. And your thermal stone, as I mentioned before, keep one near the fridge, keep one near the fire pit. That way you can keep it warm while you're wandering away, and you can always have an extra one that can be warm and one that'll be cold, and you can always continue to kind of swap between them. Sometimes before winter hits, I suggest getting the furnace, as I mentioned before, and that is with the dragonfly. But with 3 people in the server, and sometimes if you're solo on Don't Starve Together, fighting the dragonfly before the first winter sometimes is not the best option. And as you can see, our base is very, very, very flourished with a ton of berries. Now, the berry bushes are planted, but they don't look correct. And the reason for this is because they are not fertilized. So in our next video, we'll go over and tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get proper fertilizer and how to get a lot of it. Make sure that your base is ready to go for winter. Make sure that you have the armor that you need, and make sure that you have all the food prepared to get you somewhat past winter, or at least get you past the deer clops. So guys, we'll see you guys in the next video, and make sure that you guys, once again, if you have any questions at all, if you guys want to stop by and ask me questions on Twitch, All Fun and Games on Twitch TV. You guys can check me out there. And I hope you guys enjoy these videos. And I'm going to continue to do more and more of these as I can. Once again, I apologize for the delay. I know that it was a little bit of a delay before I had a chance to release these last ones, but it's just because I try to do these videos when I have enough time on my hands. So a big shout out to Kiri and Aki for helping us out again. I appreciate it a ton. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.